Weatherization Deferral Repair Program. We are going to record this webinar so that we can post it and you can go back to it if needed. We sent the slides out to you all yesterday, so hopefully everybody's got a copy of that if for some reason you're not able to see the slides this morning. So I think that's it in terms of housekeeping. You all have been on, any number, hundreds of Zoom and Google Meet calls over the last year or so. So if you can just keep your lines muted unless you have a question. We do have a hands up function. I believe that you can access down at the bottom of your screen if you do have a burning question. We'll probably try to get through the presentation before we go to questions, just so we can focus in on Aaron's presentation, which is going to be sort of a deep dive into how to set up the weatherization deferral repair program projects in CAMS. And so hopefully you all are going to be engaged in that for your respective agencies, and or other staff who may also be helping you with that or are on the call today. So so with that being said, welcome again. I don't know if Willie's on the call this morning. Willie, if you wanted to say a few words of welcome to the group on behalf of the weatherization team, more than welcome to.
Sure. Good morning. And I apologize for jumping on a little bit late, but obviously, as always, good to see you, those of you who I can see. And, I think it's all good news and that we're inching forward to getting these funds rolled out and putting together this, the structure for this program. And one, I think it's going to be, as always, a challenge, but I think it's also going to be a great opportunity for us as a network, as we kind of work our way through this, to really tackle and deal with, some of those lingering things that have been out there that have affected, our ability to do the program. And obviously coming out of the pandemic, that's presented, a number of challenges. And so our job is, and our intent here at DHCD is to help you guys work through that. And again, I think Dan has stressed through this whole thing. We want to do our best to make it as to try and keep it simple as much as we can. And increase that, while at the same time kind of managing the accountability for the funds and those kind of things. The last thing I will say is, as we get this rolled out, I know a number of you all are probably familiar with, the fact that there's a lot of discussion at the federal level about the broader DOE funded and LIHEAP funded weatherization programs that we're working with. I truly believe potentially all good things. I think if nothing else, what we're about to try to engage in through this program is going to get us a little bit ahead of the curve, because there's been a whole lot of discussion about modernizing the weatherization program. The fact that it was kind of has always been structured out of a scarcity of funds, and that at least at the federal level, we're also aware that they're having the same discussions about we need to think about an abundance of think about the same program through an abundance of funding category and how we can kind of open it up. So with that, again, welcome, and look forward to participating.
Great. Thank you, Willie. Appreciate that. Just so wanted to, again, mention to you all that although Aaron and I are in the energy efficiency office, and Willie and his team, I think we want to stress that even though we are sort of rolling this out as a separate and parallel program to weatherization, it is, inextricably linked to weatherization. And this is the reason that we're doing this, is to address, as Willie said, those lingering repair issues that have sort of held people back from being served through the weatherization program. That's, obviously, if we've got a health and safety issue or a repair that we can take care of, and then get these households served through the weatherization program, that's a win-win. And so, but I will say that we, the weatherization team and Aaron and I have worked really closely together over the last 6 months to sort of put this program together. We just want to stress that we've done so with an eye to making sure that we are working closely in coordination, and so that we're not disrupting one program or the other, and that we're working in close coordination. So, which is to say, and I do so, all joking aside, it's like, come to Aaron and me with questions on the weatherization deferral repair program. But if you don't like the answer that we give you, don't go to Willie and Nancy and try to get a different answer, because we're working. There's no daylight between us. We're working together and linking arms on this. So we want to. And with that being said, we just. I think we've all got the same goal here, is that we want to get these clients served. We know it's going to bring more projects into the weatherization program, so we understand that there's a capacity issue here at the front end. We want to be flexible, as Willie said, but we also need to have accountability in terms of how these funds are spent. This $13 million investment of RGGI funds in weatherization deferral repairs is the largest investment that we're making to date of the RGGI funds, and it's a big program. It's a big lift, and as Willie said, it's going to present some challenges, but it also presents some big opportunities. So, with that being said, I'm gonna get off my soapbox, and I'm gonna turn it over to Aaron. And Aaron's going to walk us through the CAMS setup process for the weatherization deferral repair program. He's going to go into quite a bit of detail, but the idea is, if we sort of get you on the front end here and walk you through this process, we think it's going to make a lot more sense. And that's going to lead to sort of fewer questions down the line, where we have to sort of ping pong back and forth with you on how to get these projects set up. So just bear with us. Aaron has worked his fingers to the bone on this presentation. So let's, Aaron, I'll give you the floor, and we can go from there.
Yeah, thanks, Dan and Willie, for the introduction. Quick note about me is I've been with DHCD for almost 9 years in the housing division, which is now called the Division of Community Development and Housing. And for the bulk of my time at DHCD, I've been working with CAMS. Actually, I've been at DHCD for as long as CAMS has, about 9 years. So CAMS and I are old pals at this point. So this is a very fitting presentation for me to be doing. And it's good to see some familiar faces in the network, because I was with homeless and special needs housing before this, but I'm looking forward to continuing to work with some of you and then meeting a lot of new faces in the weatherization network as we do this initiative. One more note of housekeeping that I did not include on the slides, but I just remembered it now. If you are called in from your phone, the unmute option is *6. That being said, there's like 40 or 50 people on the call, so we're going to get to questions later on. But if you are logged in on Google, you can use the chat function to put questions throughout the presentation as they pop into your brain. And then we will get to them at the end of the slideshow. And then after the slideshow, I'm a pretty visual learner myself, so it helps me to see things actually demonstrated, because the slides just have screenshots. So I think we should have time for me to stick around and do a demo of CAMS, just so you can see what it looks like to click on all the little functions in CAMS. So this is what we're doing today. We're going over CAMS and specifically how it relates to managing your weatherization deferral repair project. Versus the CAMS basics, there is a user guide, and I'll get to that a little bit later, that goes over the absolute basics of CAMS. But for the purpose of this presentation, we're focusing on those specifics for managing your project, because otherwise it would be a much lengthier presentation. So with that, we also be discussing what is the required documentation for WDR, and how do you get that into CAMS so that we can process your reports and your remittances, which ultimately is how you get paid for serving the households that you're serving to get them back into the weatherization queue. And again, I mentioned this, I'm going to do a CAMS demo after all this. And also I'll say this to the DHCD staff, I'm full screen on the presentation. So if there's anything urgent comes up in chat, like a good burning question that I need to answer on the spot, please let me know verbally. Because again, I've got the slides on my one screen.
Will do, Aaron.
All right, thanks, Dan. So CAMS, it stands for Centralized Application and Management System. It's DHCD's proprietary system that we use for receiving applications for programs that need to have an application. With WDR, we didn't have a formal application process. We did all the requests for your deferral totals and the dollar amounts through email. But the second part of the name, management system, that's where we're going to focus on for this presentation, because that's what you're going to be doing in CAMS. Specifically on these bullet points, I point out that what you can do in CAMS for WDR is you can review your contract, and later on, hypothetically, if we have any addendums to your contract, they'll be put in CAMS as well. You can review your budget so you know how much money you have and how much money you have remaining. You can submit reports and then submit remittances and the associated documentation. And that documentation is what we have to process in order for you to get paid for the WDR jobs. So again, we sent out the slides just because I've realized from using the virtual platform, sometimes it can be a little bit difficult to see the text and the font size when it shrinks down on the Google platform. So if you're having issues with the font size, just take a look at the slides. But either way, I'll do my best to verbally explain what's on the slide itself. So this is just a screenshot of the HIE page, but you can actually access CAMS from anywhere on DHCD's website. So you don't have to be on the HIE page. And I'll demo that later too. But any page on DHCD's website, hypothetically, you should have this Access CAMS link at the top. And you click that, takes you to the login page. And I specifically point out the user guide here because again, we don't have time to go over the absolute basics of CAMS. For this, we're focusing on the programmatic components specifically. But if you're new to CAMS or you just need a refresher, we have a relatively new user guide that is uploaded into CAMS, and it's quite thorough for getting those basics set up. Actually, I have a whole slide explaining it. So it does explain how to register your agency, but all of your agencies are pre-registered in CAMS, either because you have other projects with the DHCD, because CAMS is the primary way that we do business for most of the programs at DHCD. But you also do have a project that's populated in CAMS for your WAP project, and that has your WAP contract in it. So no one actually needs to register your agency. But that being said, something you probably want to take a look at, and the user guide explains this, and that is the user roles that are for each individual user that you need to assign to have access to CAMS for your agency. So if you need to add someone who's going to manage your WDR project, the user guide explains how to do that, and it also explains what user role that you might want to assign to them. So your agency has full control over who has access to your CAMS profile. And you can even add consultants. It doesn't even have to be anybody at your agency, but in most cases it will be. Since most of you do have projects other than WDR and CAMS, someone's probably been in contact with the agency to make sure that you're up to date on your audit. But if you're not, I'll figure that out quickly and contact you just to make sure that you have your most recent audit, because otherwise, technically, the DHCD can't pay people that don't have an up-to-date audit in CAMS. And then that third part is really what you're going to be focusing on. But the user guide itself goes over just the very basics of how to submit reports and remittances. And again, I'm going to be going over the specifics for WDR. So let's say you're in that login page and you've logged in. You get to a screen that looks like this. This is the project management screen. It lists out all your individual projects. And it's cut off on the screenshot. You don't really need to worry about it. But it also, if you have reports that are due it lists them under a reporting schedule, or if they're overdue. At this point, no one has any overdue reports because we're just getting started. So let's pretend that instead of FY15 eHARP, it says WDR. What you're going to do is go to your 2022 WDR project and click on the detail button. And that's how you access your WDR project. Takes you to a screen that looks like this. You have 4 tabs to contend with here. The first one that it takes you to is your project information tab. And what we need from you is to check this tab to make sure that the information is completely up to date. I'm using APCA here as an example because I have access to the project and they're first alphabetically. It's just that simple. But either way, on your project, you're going to want to look at project primary contact and make sure that the person who is there with their phone number and their email, that's who D8CD needs to contact if there are any issues with a payment being denied or a report being denied. So please just go in and make sure that's up to date. This was pre-populated with your WAP project from 2022 or 2020 actually. So I do believe it's not going to be totally up to date for everybody. So please update that. Then what you're going to want to do is update your service area. And so on this tab, it's separated by county, city, and town. This is important to update because when DHCD pulls data out for our projects that we're required to report out, we do need to know the service areas, and this is how we pull that information. The way that you can populate this, I mean, your service area is actually the same service area for your WAP project, as far as I understand. That's how we populated your program agreement. And so you can go into your program agreement and find the clause that has all the cities and counties listed out, you know, if you don't have them like memorized or whatever. And then you go to this tab and then you click add city, add/edit county, add/edit city, and then just click the check boxes next to each of the ones in your service area. And then this is a recurring theme in CAMS and also just using a computer, and that's just always make sure you save your work. CAMS is like anything else. If you don't click the save button and you quit out of it, it's not going to save it. And nobody wants that to happen. We want you to not lose your work. So please just make sure that you're saving. Anytime you see that save button there on a page in CAMS, it's there for a reason. So please take advantage of it. So that's dealing with that first tab and getting that taken care of for project setup. I mentioned your contract. We had emailed your contracts out to you, and then you emailed them back to Dan and I with the signature. DHCD has signed all the contracts at this point, and I have uploaded them into CAMS. So if you want to access it, you go to the last tab, Reports and Documents, and you can see your fully executed program agreement. It's, for most of you, it's going to be the only thing listed on this tab right now because you haven't started your project and then requested payment for anything. So it'll be the only thing there. It says contract document. You just highlight it with your mouse and click on it. And then again, I'm using APCA as an example. You can just click on the document. It's in PDF form. And you can see where at the bottom, our acting deputy director, Pam Kastner, who is our signatory party. So there you go. That's your contract and the project information tab. And so based on your contract, I went ahead and just uploaded everyone's budget into CAMS. And so back on this project management page, you have a budget tab. At this point in time, and probably in the future, you won't really need to mess around with this too much. I think DHCD might just manually edit budgets ourselves if we ever need to. But you can see where we have our 2 budget categories here. We have housing repairs. It's relatively self-explanatory. And then we have your admin. And based on your contract, and you already know which one you are. You have 10 20% limit on your admin. I think the one other thing I'll point out on this tab is that the column on the far right is where you have your available funds. It's going to be the full amount right now, obviously, but later on, if you need to check and make sure that what's in CAMS matches with your QuickBooks or whatever you're using in your agency, this is how you can do that to see how much funds you still have remaining in the categories. All right, now we are moving on to the part where you get to start having some fun in CAMS. So for initiating WDR jobs, we do have some upfront requirements for reporting. And so what you're going to want to do is go back to that Reports and Documents tab where your contract was or is. And then there's a drop down there next to Add Report/Document. And for each individual address that you're working on, you're going to add one of these reports. That being said, if it becomes unwieldy, if you report, you're putting in like 400 of these things, then, we can deal with that later. But for the time being, we have it set up so that each one of these reports is per address. And so when you've got your first job in and you're ready to submit the documentation, you do the drop down and you go to WDR Initial Setup Report, and then you click Add. And this will be what it looks like. You have your contract on the same page, and then you have your first WDR Initial Setup Report. And so then in order to fill out the actual report, you click on it just like you did with your contract. Excuse me. So I'm going to go line by line on this, because there's only 8 items. Again, we really were trying to make this as simple as possible to fulfill our accountability requirements and the data reporting that we need to do. And also, the weatherization team needs to know when specific addresses are going back into the weatherization queue. And so this is one of the mechanisms that we're using to check that. So the first thing you're putting in is the date. If I was doing this report today, I would put in today's date. It's just whatever date that you're starting this report. Property address is the second item. And then you put in the repair type or types. So this is a check all that apply, because in some instances you're going to have those homes that had multiple job types that you need to fill out. And there is an other, and under number 4 you describe what other is. We mentioned this in the guidelines and probably also the agreement, but if you're not sure if a cost is eligible or if it is another, I would say go ahead and reach out to Dan and I to check on the eligibility of a cost. The last thing we want you to do is initiate a job where a cost is ineligible. So please reach out to the energy efficiency office for verifying any questions you have about eligibility of costs, so that you're not having any issues down the road. And then the fifth element on this is total cost, and that is we're sympathetic to change orders and like that, but this is at this point in time when you're initializing the project, what is the cost estimate at this point? So if it ends up changing, we can deal with that at a later date. And the last 3 items on the initialization report are documents that you're uploading: the application form and homeowner agreement, the authorization and release form, and then photos that show the job before the job is completed. So this is after, when you're requesting payment, we request after photos, but we request before photos in this report so that we can see before and after. And for those of you who work with eHarp, this process might sound a little bit familiar, and that's because, again, we did our best to try to stick to what's simple and familiar where possible when we were designing this program. And I don't have a screenshot for this, but like everything else in CAMS, at the bottom of this report, you're going to click Save so that you don't lose the report that you worked on. And then you're going to hit Submit. And then it enters DHCD's workflow for review. And I guess the last thing I'll say about that is you can save without submitting and come back and edit the report. And also, if you submit a report and there's an issue with it, I can click Deny on the report and kick it back to you, and then you can edit it. Which unfortunately is not true for remittances because they have money attached to them. But if you make a mistake on this, we can go back and remediate that issue. So that's how you initiate the project. And after it's been approved by our office, then you can start asking for some money. Oh, I think before we get to that, though, I do have a quick explanation of the 2 forms. Underline them here. I just went over this. So this is what you're submitting on that report. That WDR application form and homeowner agreement. But first of all the forms are available on the HIE webpage, and during the demo later, I'll pull that up just to make sure it's clear where those are. But so this application form and homeowner agreement, it's just that agreement between the agency and a homeowner, and also the tenant if it's a rental. It describes the scope of the work, and since the purpose of this program is to address that gap of homes that have been deferred, it's also the agreement that the homes will be moved into the weatherization queue and will be getting weatherization services, getting WAP. And you know, this seems self-explanatory, but you know, after working in CAMS for years and years and years, one of the biggest reasons that something gets denied is that it's missing signatures. So please just make sure that you got all the necessary signatory parties. And the other form is the WDR. Yep.
Can I jump in real quick?
Absolutely.
One item, just to let you all know, the report function will help us, as Aaron said, generate a pipeline of projects that we have in the queue. And you know, when we start to get to scale on this program, you know, we could be talking about several hundred projects that will be going at any one time. So it'll be important for us to have this information so that we can run a query and generate a report. And so we know what projects you have in the pipeline. And then we share that with the weatherization team so that they're aware that these are projects that are now in WDR, and eventually they'll be weatherization ready and coming back into the weatherization queue, and they can plan accordingly. So that just wanted to mention that. And then I think for those agencies that do have some multifamily projects, you know, we're going to sort of work with you to find a way that we can kind of, you know, come to an agreement in terms of how we manage the process and the paperwork so that it's not unduly burdensome. If you've got, you know, let's say you've got a multifamily building with 60 units, you know, we'll probably find some alternative process where we can make the reporting setup a little less cumbersome for you, but still make sure that we've got all the information that we need from you. Okay, thanks, Aaron. Sorry about that.
Yeah, thanks, Dan. And yeah, the whole purpose of this process is we really try to design this to be straightforward and fulfill our needs of accountability. And you know, I was thinking this would have been so clean if I had one of those nice little flow charts that Microsoft Word and PowerPoint has. Hindsight's 2020. I could have put in a nice flow chart to show the simplicity of this, but here we go. All right, so the other form is the authorization release, and this is just a certification of property ownership and authorization of those repairs. And again, it's got three lines for signatures depending on the scenario, and also on the web page. So yeah, so After you submitted these forms and the photos and the other data elements, you hit save and submit that report. We review it, approve it, and then there's two ways you can request payment from DHCD. One's the preferred option, and the other is one that we designed for flexibility if you need it. But before I get to that, I will point out remittance is the term that DHCD uses for requesting payment or drawdown, reimbursement request, whatever you want to call it. It's just the term that we use in CAMS for requesting payment. And so the recommended option, just because it's cleaner and it's going to be less paperwork for you and less paperwork for us, and it's going to be a faster process for getting paid, is after you fully completed the job, you're requesting the funds from DHCD. But we do fully understand that, you know, agencies have different levels of capacity, and this is, you know, it can be a lot of money that you're fronting for some of these jobs. So there is a second option where you can request a remittance that has up to 10% of the job estimate with the application signing. So when you've done that initial report, you can get up to 10%. And then upon materials and equipment delivery, up to 60%. And then the remaining 30 or more percent, depending on the math, is when you've completed the project. So you could have 3 remittances per job, but again, that it's extra paperwork, but we want to have that flexibility for those who need it. So the remaining of this presentation is pretty much focusing on the payment. And so I'll do my best to get through these slides and try to make this as clear as possible, because we know the payment process is very important. So I've got a screenshot on this slide showing you that final tab that we haven't gone over yet, and that's remittances. And in this screenshot, again, since I was, you know, I had to go back and take screenshots from an old eHarp project that I have access to, because I can show you this is what it looks like for a project where they've hypothetically submitted 6 remittances that all got denied. Again, we were just using this for testing, but it's gonna be blank at this point for you, and you're just gonna have that link on the far right that says enter new remittance. So that's how you get started with your first remittance and any subsequent remittances. Click on enter new remittance. Again, this is an eHarp screenshot. And I'm just going to, you know, verbally explain that. Hopefully the slides won't confuse anyone. So what happens when you click enter new remittances, it brings up a page that looks pretty similar to your budget. You're going to have home repairs and administration instead of home maintenance. This is a different program. But the actual filling out of remittances is a twofold process. You're putting in the total request amount for those budget categories, again, repairs and administration. And then you're uploading the attachments under that choose file button, which is going to have the required signed cover sheet. It's going to have your invoices that you get from your contractors, or just whatever's going into whatever financial documentation you have for the repairs themselves. That's what you're attaching. It's going to have two more required forms, and then it's going to have those post repair photos that I mentioned earlier. And the rest of my slides are pretty much discussing these attachments. You also have the so you can name your remittance, and we do recommend that. You know, you can put the address, you can put the month, just something that makes logical sense to you, that's going to help you stay organized and help us stay organized. That works just fine. And then if you have any additional information you need to add, there is a text box for that on here. Like everything else I've mentioned, click that save button. You can come back actually before you submit it and edit it if you need to, and then hit submit. And then it enters DHCD's workflow for our review. So this is just a list out of the remittance documentation for closing out that project and getting paid. So I mentioned that signed summary cover sheet. It's available on the web page, although as of presenting this, I think the one that's on the web page is out of date. We're still waiting to get the up-to-date version on. We might just go ahead and email you out the new cover sheet. The financial documentation that I mentioned, which is the invoices, and there's 2 other forms in addition to the post-repair photos, are the general contractor affidavit, warranty, and lien waiver, and the certificate of completion. And so you're going to want to put all these things as that one attachment on the remittance. And I mentioned that actually in the last bullet on this slide, is that it's preferred that you upload it as a PDF, but if it's easier, you can compress it and put it as a zip file. I mean, again, it's just that one slot, so you can do either option if it's whichever is easier. The PDF is just preferred because it's easier to review. So this cover sheet that I mentioned, just make sure that the amount on the cover sheet matches your request in CAMS. And actually, we made it so that if you want to, you can put up to 5 jobs on the cover sheet instead of just submitting a remittance for every single individual job. And I'll show you this during the demo, as well as I've got a couple screenshots for this. And it has to be signed, like everything. It's important for me to mention that. So this is the screenshot of the Excel spreadsheet. And I have an arrow here pointing out just where we need you to fill out the basic information, the name of your agency, your agreement number. Your agreement number is on your contract. It's 22 WDR and then a 2-digit number. And I believe that 2-digit number is the same number as your 2-digit number for your WAP contract, actually. And then the date you're submitting, who's submitting the report. I mean, the remittance, rather. And then, so this is where you're showing some detail of the summary of your expenses. So we have 5 rows here where you can submit payment for up to 5 jobs. And realistically, I could edit the spreadsheet for your agency if you need it to have more than that. We just figured we'd start with 5. And if that's not enough, we can deal with that later. You can also not even worry about that and just do 1 job at a time when you're submitting payment. That way, if there's an error, you don't have to worry about having an issue, having payment held up for 5 jobs at once. But again, we wanted to be as flexible as possible without it being too confusing. So the first column is where there's actually a drop down in the Excel spreadsheet. You can just go ahead and request that total job cost or do that breakdown that I mentioned on a previous slide. Then you're going to want to put in who completed the work in that second column. Third column is the address. And then you're putting in the total repair costs for that job. And then you'll see there's also a row on this spreadsheet for administration. And so you're not manually putting administration in that. There's actually a whole tab for that. And there's a little thing at the bottom of the slide that mentions that. It populates from a different tab. If this functions correctly, I worked really hard on this. I hope it works. And so this is the admin tab. And so this is really, at this point in time, the extent that we're asking for admin expenses, but barring special scenarios, is that you're putting, if you have staff costs that you're charging to admin, you're putting the staff name, job title, their hourly rate, their hours. And then in the final box is where you're putting in the total amount that you're charging. And again, this has 5 rows on it for up to 5 staff members, but if you need more, you can always let me know and I can perform surgery on this spreadsheet for another time. And then for non-staff admin expenses, we just have a box at the bottom there where you can just provide a written description of those admin expenses. And we're doing this to try to keep admin from getting, unwieldy for when we're reviewing it, just to make sure that it's, we're just having this one tab for it. And then you put in the amount and it totals at the very bottom. And then going back to the previous slide, that's what populates under admin right there, is that second tab. And then at the bottom of this, I don't have a screenshot for it, but that's where you're putting in your signature. And I also put like a little checklist, so to speak, that you can kind of see on the bottom left of this slide that has the other documents that you're attaching to this spreadsheet. So there you go. That's that attachment that goes on that remittance page that you're putting in there. And so, again, I've been reviewing remittances since I've been at DHCD, and I tried to make a slide that would be helpful for just some common errors that I've seen. But one thing I will mention is that the process for remittance processing, it usually takes 30 days, up to 30 days for your agency to receive payment for state funds from the date that you submitted it. And that's if there's no issues or discrepancies with the remittance. It can be longer than that if there's an error or it gets denied. It definitely will be longer than that. And one of the things I'm going to be doing in my role is if I see issues or need clarification, I'll be reaching out to you directly, based on who's assigned to this project in CAMS, or just whoever lets me know that they're the person who submits the remittances. And so the common reasons for the denial are, some of these seem kind of simple, but it's just one of those things where it always helps to go back and check to make sure that you've crossed all your T's and dotted all your I's. And that's just make sure that the cover sheet dollar amount matches the dollar amount that you're putting in CAMS. This is important to point out because sometimes with fractions of cents, you'll see some rounding stuff happen on a spreadsheet. So just double check to make sure that there wasn't like a weird rounding error that's throwing it off by like a penny. Make sure you sign it. Again, we're all human. Sometimes we just forget to fill out a widget. And another issue is if that financial supporting documentation doesn't match what you're communicating to us in the request. If it's you have the wrong job, or you say it's a roofing repair, but it actually is a something else, then we're gonna have questions about that. Missing documentation, again, it's, we're human. Sometimes we forget to put everything in the thing. And then ineligible costs, and this is the thing that I'm hoping that we just make sure you're reviewing the guidelines, and then make sure you're clarifying anything with Dan and I about any questions you have about if a particular repair or deferral cause is something that we can pay with WDR funds. And before we get to questions in the demo, I'm trying to think if there's anything else. I think that's pretty much it. But yeah, this is how you get paid. Your agency's set up so that at the end of the process, the workflow goes through the energy efficiency office, and then we have finance staff at DHCD that are very detail oriented. And so I try to catch any errors before it gets to them. And once the finance staff approve it, they use the online system to do the direct deposit into your agency's account based on what you have set up through the state. And yeah, I just have a screenshot here. I'm going to do a demo where I'll show you where the forms are, but this is just to remind you that on the High E page is where we store the WDR forms. And yeah, that's what I just mentioned. Again, that the remittance cover sheet form, I just updated it because there was an issue with it, so we might just email that out just in case it takes a little bit longer than we expected to get it on the website. And there you have it. So yeah, before we get to the demo, oh yeah, one more thing I'll mention too before we get to questions is with all the project management CAMS, I'm probably going to be your primary point of contact But there's the contact information for Dan and I. But I'm the front line of defense for reviewing reports and remittances before it gets to Dan and the finance staff. Again, this program's working in tandem with the Weatherization Team. I have Nancy's contact information on here, but whoever you're currently working with for answering weatherization related questions, you're going to continue to work with them specific for WAP, and the WDR goes to Dan and I. And then we do have a CAMS help desk. It's an email account that's staffed by DHCD, where it's more for if you have a glitch or some kind of error message. They're usually the ones you want to contact because they work with our IT staff to fix those kinds of issues. But that being said, you're more than welcome to reach out to me with CAMS questions. And so with that, do we have any questions before I try to get the demo?
Aaron, we do have a couple questions stacking up, so maybe we can try to pick some of those off before we do the demo.
Sure.
So Steve asked the question, does everything have to be uploaded at the same time like eHarp, or can you add uploads as you get them? So I think you can save and then hit submit when you've got everything ready to go. Is that correct?
That's correct. When you're submitting that initial setup report, you can go in, edit a few things, and then save it, and then come back at a later date and then finish the report off. As long as you don't hit submit. When you hit submit, then you can't edit it anymore, and it comes to me. And if you accidentally hit submit, you can always just email me and say, hey, I need you to kick this back to me.
All right, very good. So there's a question from Brooke about remittances only available after project job approval. So yes, we'll want to get the project set up and approved based on the estimates provided for the repairs. And then we'll get that project set up and approved. And then once the work is complete, then the remittance can be submitted, but can't put the cart before the horse. So hopefully that's fair on that. Steve, in terms of how you want to name your invoices, Aaron and I can work on sort of a good naming convention. But I think initially it probably should just be something that makes sense to you. We'll have to see as the workflow increases and we start to get, hundreds and hundreds of documents that we're looking at. We may want to have a naming convention that we establish for these documents. So I'm just thinking out loud with you all here, but this is, Aaron, did you have any thoughts on that?
Sure. I mean, some of the programs I worked with in the past, the way that they did it was based on time period. So if you're submitting remittances for the previous month, you would name it July, or if you're submitting 2 months at a time, July through August. If you're doing it per individual address, you could put the address. You could also number them. We currently don't have an internal DHCD rule about this. That could change at a later date because we're always trying to strengthen CAMS to be a more uniform system for all of our programs. But at this point in time, we don't have a rule about that. I mean, Dan and I, maybe we can put our heads together and see if something makes sense if it starts getting confusing after the first couple months. But yeah, just to reiterate what Dan said, just find a system that makes sense for you, and hopefully it'll make sense for us.
Yeah, my question was I kind of missed that when you was going through. I was writing some things in the internal invoice box. Is that where we name it?
So on the, go back.
Like the eHarp job where we put the name of the client in, right there, top left.
Right there. That's correct.
Okay.
Yeah, if you have we don't need the beneficiary name for for WDR that, you know, we didn't put that in the report. So you don't need to put the name, the address at this point in time, unless you know, Dan, or, you know, we end up changing this. The unique identifier per job is going to be address.
Okay.
Yeah. Okay. So Sandy had a question. It says the cost has to match the request. What do we do if it ends up costing more or less than the initial request? Sandy, it's a really good question. I think what we're trying to do at the front end is get the project approval based on the contractor estimate that you have for the repair job. So we kind of want to take care of that on the front end. You know, we're already having some back and forth with Steve on a project. So it may be something where if the contractor, if you're asking the electrician, for example, to go back and re-estimate the job for us, you wait until you have that estimate, and we sort of know what the full cost of the job is before you do the setup. So we really want to catch that on the front end. And with that said, you know, we do have some flexibility. We can go over the cost caps if there is an extenuating circumstance. You know, we want to be able to work with you all, like we said, to you know, get these clients served and get them back in the weatherization queue. So if you've got a job that comes in over the caps, just reach out to Aaron and me, explain the circumstances, and you know, we'll work with you. But chances are we want to be able to, you know, you've got a budget to work with, we, you know, our directive from Eric, from our agency director on down is let's, you know, we have the funds. This is the opportunity. The planets have aligned. We want to get these clients served. You know, we want to do it as transparently and with as much accountability as possible. So with that guidance, Sandy, I hope that helps on your question. And then this segues into another question, couple other questions Leroy asked. Can you use budgeted funds for other homes? You know, we'll want to, you know, if there's a deferral, that's, you know, we're basing these budgets kind of loosely off the list of deferred homes that you all provided to us, and estimates for the, you know, for the costs. So that's basically how we sort of framed the budget that you have available. So if you have other homes that come on the deferral list and you want to use the funds for those, yes, you can use these funds for those projects. And then to your second question, Leroy, we're going to set up a performance pool so that we've got additional funds that we can sort of bring to bear. We can amend your agreement and add funds to your agreement if you find that you're running short of funds. So we don't have that established just yet, but we're in the process of working on that. So the idea being is that we don't want to have, if you've got, you know, 6 months into this, you've already spent down your budget and you need some additional funds. You can come back to us and we can, you know, we're going to work with you and see what we can do to get some additional funding. Now, on the other side of that, you're not under any obligation to spend all the funds in year one. I think, as we've said to you before, we understand that there's going to be a ramp up period for this program, and you know, we can roll funds that you have at the end of the program year over into the next year. If you know, so we have some flexibility on the other side of it as well. Okay, I'm scrolling down here.
Excuse me, Mr. Farrell.
Yeah.
This is Leroy. On that first question, when I say, can you use budget funds for other homes? What I was trying to convey is let's say a home that's already deferred comes under budget. Okay, and I have an additional $1,000 left over, and I have a home that's going to be deferred because of a plumbing issue. If that $1,000 will cover that cost, could we use that $1,000 for that other home? That's what I'm asking.
Yes, absolutely. You can set that project up and put it through. Under budget's a good thing. So again, you've got your budget that we've set up for you to work with. And so you've got some flexibility within that budget to serve the homes that are either that are deferred or that may become deferred, throughout the program year.
And this might maybe further clarify your question. When you're putting in this initial estimate under total cost in that report, that doesn't pull any money out of your budget. That's just you communicating to DHCD how much the job should hypothetically cost. The only money that gets pulled out of your budget comes when you submit a remittance. So if it comes under that initial estimate, you're still going to have that money in your budget to continue to run this program with.
Thank you.
Hey, Willie, did you have anything to add on that?
No.
Okay.
Actually, Aaron covered it, and I think as a blanket statement to those of you on the call, what we have attempted to commit to is that we've allocated and set aside funds for your particular organization. So if you go in thinking you're going to get do 5 homes, and it turns out you can do 7 or 8 homes, you have that budget allocation to do that. And so that's the commitment. And as Dan mentioned too, if you if you're going in your estimate, which you're going to finish 8 homes in that first year, and you only get 6 of them done, our intent is to allow you to carry that funding over into the next program year to pull in those other 2 or additional homes. So I want to be clear about how our intent is to allocate these fundings to the funding to your individual agencies.
So, Leroy, another good question here. Funds are only for WAP applicants. Yeah, generally speaking, the purpose of the program is to address households that are WAP eligible, that are deferred, and to get these repairs done and make them weatherization ready so that they can come back into the regular weatherization queue. So we're gonna, I think where we're gonna have to kind of feel our way here along is if we've got folks that are not WAP eligible, so they're above the WAP income limits. We are having some conversations with the utilities about the possibility of using some of the high E funds for repairs that might, so that we can serve households up to 80% of AMI. And so I think we don't really have super clear guidance on that right now to give you all, but I think, yeah, so generally speaking, we want to get the WAP eligible folks served and get them weatherization ready and get them back into the weatherization queue. Steve, you had a question about the internal invoice. Maybe you want to hop on and just clarify. I'm not quite sure we were following.
You addressed it a while ago. That was my first question, and I just didn't have it worded good. But
got it.
Just word to name it in that internal invoice box.
Yeah. Okay. Questions are really flowing in now. So Carrie had a question about cost caps applied to multifamily. Yeah, Carrie, this is not sure how many multifamily projects you had in your queue for project homes. We're going to be talking to CHP, trying to work through some of those issues. I think we understand that it's, the widget as itself, the cost caps were really kind of, we structured it in such a way that was really more in alignment with a single family home project. So I know on the HVAC, we mentioned it's per unit. So if you got a multifamily building and, a all of the furnaces need to be replaced, that's a per unit cost, so we would apply that to each unit in the building. Roofing, obviously, that cost cap is is in there for, primarily calibrated to a single family home. So we're probably going to have to address that for multifamily, particularly if it's something where it's a re-roof of the whole building and not just a repair of a specific leak. But why don't we, Carrie, we can set up some time with you to kind of talk through some of that.
Dan, that'd be helpful because we
Okay.
actually have roofs coming right out. That's the first one I have is some roofs.
Okay.
So,
on multifamily or
on
single?
multifamily.
On multifamily.
Yep.
Okay. All right.
All right. Thank you.
Yep. Let's see. John is asking about the material costs. Couple days for price guarantee. Unforeseen work that arises while they're in process. Yeah, we'll need a change order process. Yeah. Again, we understand some of the challenges right now out there in the market. Let's try to see if we can catch it at the front end, when we're doing the project setup and approval. But yes, we do, we will have to set up a process to reapprove. And Aaron, I don't know if you have any immediate thoughts on how we might do that, but this is, we got to be sort of prepared for some unforeseen circumstances here. So if we do need to change the approved cost of a project, I'm assuming we'll just need to document that and get that in the workflow.
Yeah, I mean, I guess what I'm thinking, maybe a worst case scenario here is you go into maybe like a knob and tube wiring job, and then when you really get into the home, you find out that there's this other structural issue, and then there's some mold. Is that kind of what we're thinking here? Is that we're adding items? I would say if we're adding items, then we just do another report, and I can always delete the old one.
Okay.
Dan
All right.
and Aaron, this is Carrie again. Can I just add something real quick, like on a change order?
Yeah.
I think there's going to have to be some trust between us and the agencies, because a very common thing is a roofer's literally on the roof and we find out there's more sheathing damage than they thought. We need to approve that really quickly, because if not, I mean, we need to keep them moving, and we sure don't need them pulling off the site for a couple of days while we're getting a change order approved. So I hope we're going to be able to figure out an efficient way to turn that around pretty rapidly with you all, or maybe you've already thought of it. But those are the kind of concerns I have, is I don't want to stall out, and given the distance some of our contractors are traveling to help us, we don't want to pull an electrician off a job for it when that person might have been able to do the repairs right then if we could have just approved them. So I hope we can have a bigger dialogue along those lines.
That's excellent feedback for thought, Carrie.
All right. Well, let's keep plowing ahead on the questions here. Chase is asking multiple remittances requested for the same address. For example, electric repairs happen in August, but HVAC supplies aren't available until November. Could 2 separate requests be made for the same unique identifier? Yeah, Chase, I certainly don't see any reason why not. I think we're, again, the general principle is we want to get the repairs done and get the home or the unit weatherization ready. So unless I'm overlooking something there, I don't see that there would be any issue with that.
But can I ask a question on that situation? But
Sure.
if the HVAC is not the reason for deferral, why would you want to do that as a deferral? I'm just asking.
Yeah, this is the case. I think in this case, it would be that the HVAC is the reason for the deferral. And that's what we've sort of set out, is that the repairs are going to be specifically for the issue that's causing the deferral from weatherization.
Yeah.
Yep. It's all right. So Brett's asking if the initial setup report is for an individual job. Remittance cover page can bundle jobs together. Remittance seems to have points that limit to an individual job. Would you submit a cover page multiple times? Brett, I would say, part of this is we've got some time set up with you guys with CHP next week to talk about some of this. I think with the multifamily, we know that there may need to be some, we might need to talk through some of this just to kind of figure out what makes sense on these projects. But I think we want to, we want to be reasonable about this, and maybe that we ask you to keep some of the documentation on file, but that what you're submitting through CAMS is not every single unit or something of that nature. To Carrie's point, we have to assume that we have a good level of trust between the agencies and DHCD on this whole endeavor. But
yeah, and to add to that, so just to directly answer your question, the way the initial setup report is currently structured is that it's per address, and we had extensive conversations about this when we were designing the program, and then that's part of just a nuance of CAMS. And the way that the remittance is set up is that you are, if you choose, you can put multiple addresses in this. However, you can just do one if you want to keep it simple. And then we have that other option where you can split it between 3 different time periods of payment, which again, that's more paperwork. That being said, and I think this, hopefully maybe this will address some of the concern and anxiety maybe some of you have, is that, we thought really hard about the program design, but that being said, we're not saying this is how the program and CAMS is going to be structured forever and ever, and we're never changing it. If we, get down the road, we it turns out that some of these processes aren't conducive to business, or there's something that we can do to improve the process. We're going to be paying very close attention to the feedback that we're getting from you and the issues that we're seeing, so that if we need to make adjustments down the road, that we can do that. And I think that's just a theme of this program in general, is that this is pretty new territory. It's an amazing initiative, but we did build some of this from the ground up, and so we're not closed off to change if that's what we need to do in order to improve the way that we're doing business.
yeah, so and with that said, also, if we have any changes to policies or processes, we'll share those out with you all, just as the Weatherization program does. So if there's any sort of change that affects the overall policies and procedures, we'll send a notification out, so that everybody gets it at the same time. And then Liz had a question. So in other words, you would have to set that client up even though your job only cost $1,000. Yeah, if I'm understanding correctly, Liz, if it isn't a $1,000 job, it would still need to be set up as a project. Just so we're aware of what's in the pipeline, and then that you've got the project set up, and you can, we can approve the funds, and you can invoice for us. The Leroy had asked how to handle the homes that said they would accept weatherization after repairs are made and then say no to weatherization. We're asking them in the homeowner agreement to commit to the weatherization. So they're going to be asked to commit to the weatherization repairs, and if there's some reason, I think that needs to be emphasized in terms of the homeowner agreement, that they are committing to the weatherization work by virtue of accepting the weatherization deferral repair effort. And I think we've made that clear, that it's it's a twofer. So
Hey, Dan, I think that's clear, but the question, and we come across this, we got them to sign that they commit to weatherization. But the question is, what do we do when they say, no, I got the repair, I'm done, go away? How do we handle it at that point?
well, yeah, Willie, I see you leaning in. Do you have any?
Yeah, I mean, I
guidance
think,
for us?
you know, I mean, Brett, I mean, I think that there's a couple of realities. I mean, the short answer is that, you know, we don't anticipate and expect you all to be the police, but the reality is, I think, and it's no different than the situations we've had with, you know, weatherization clients who, you know, opt in. You know, we kind of are going to have to deal with those on a case-by-case basis. The reality is that, you know, for a, you know, there's a test of reasonableness that we would expect, obviously, you guys to engage in, as well as you know, the homeowner. And again, you know, I know, and you know, these situations are kind of few and far between, and I guess we can kind of think through, and that may be an evolving policy. If we have this experience with 1 or 2 clients, we may have to revisit how that intake process happens, and it may have to be a little bit more extensive. So, you know, that's something, you know, I'll just say at this point that, you know, we feel like, you know, just like we do now, by getting them to sign off on the agreement, that there's a reasonable expectation. And if we run into a couple of situations where, you know, we have those folks who have an ulterior motive, then, you know, I think and part of our solutions may revolve around the experiences we have with those clients. So I know that's not a firm answer. And again, we don't expect you to be any more of a police. You know, I think the other part of this is just like we're dealing with weatherization. We have that final, you know, the QCI inspection to close out a project. And we know, given, you know, some of the outcomes of the pandemic, that's been a little bit more difficult for you guys to navigate. And we're trying to work through those, you know, one by one. And just like I know Nancy had one she was communicating with DOE on, and they've come up with some reasonable solutions to close out the project. And so I think we'll just kind of have to explore those if we run into those situations.
Mr. Fobbs, is there any way we can update this agreement to kind of inform the homeowner that he or she may be responsible for the cost? I mean,
I mean, quite frankly, yeah, I mean, I think that language is possible. You know, again, I think it's, you know, it all boils down to the enforcement capability, but certainly I think, you know, tightening up the language on the consumer agreement, absolutely.
Okay. I made a note of that, and we will definitely take a look at that language on the homeowner agreement. It does say that the homeowner commits to both the weatherization deferral repairs and weatherization, subsequent weatherization work. So like Willie said, you know, we rely on you to be the boots on the ground, not necessarily the police, but just making sure that that's clearly communicated to the homeowner. So that, you know, again, we'll try to do the best we can to catch some of this on the front end from a quality control standpoint.
Right.
So let's see, John asked the WDR general contractor affidavit warranty and lien. Aaron will show you that form when we do the demo. So Chase knows about building the plane in mid-flight, but good to have you along helping us build the plane in mid-flight, Chase. Appreciate it. Liz would like to go back to Chase's question on relating to multifamily remittances, I'm assuming.
Not necessarily multifamily.
So Chase, yeah. So what was your original question related to multifamily? Were you just talking about the spacing out of the activities that would have to happen on the home?
Yeah, more broadly, spacing out the activities, the repairs for any project, single family or multifamily.
So, you know, if I think I'm understanding, for example, if you're talking about you're going to have maybe multiple 1 or 2 subcontractors who have to come in and one is in there doing the job, and then but the supplies associated with the second contractor may not be. I mean, I think if I'm understanding, I think as long that's a situation where, based on your estimates, you kind of have an overall a planned overall job cost. It's just when those things happen. And I'll kind of defer to Aaron to if you can think through that, Aaron, and you don't have to think on the spot if it's something you want to get back to. But but the job, I'm understanding the overall job estimate may not in fact change. But what I'm hearing is, in that scenario, you will have gotten your full estimates. And if you're using that example of the three-part draw, once those estimates are submitted, you would be able to draw down the initial 10% on the job, and then the other 60% draws would happen based on the delivery of those cost of materials. So I'm just kind of thinking out loud, but if you're in a scenario where the first portion of the job and it amounts to 40% of the request, then I would think that that's what you would draw down on your second draw. So maybe on a job like that, you may be looking at a 3-draw or a 4-draw process instead of the 3-draw that's outlined. If one contractor's work is done, because we know your contractor is going to have a 30-day or 45-day net pay schedule, and then you have a second contractor coming in 2 weeks later because their supplies whatever don't arrive. So Aaron, do you want to? I mean, I know I'm just kind of thinking on the spot, but I don't know.
I mean, I'll totally admit this whole splitting the cost thing was the thing I was most nervous about.
Right.
And I think it's going to be
why Chase asked the question, right?
Yeah, exactly. He could sense my fear. I would say that it's going to be. My guess is this is going to be like a lot of things. It's going to be a case-by-case basis, where we're going to see if doing this system of the 3 split of the job ends up never working out, then we're going to probably adjust our process. But if it's, 1 out of every 10 jobs or something like that, there's an issue, then we can work with that on a case-by-case. Dan, did you have anything to add?
Yeah, so sorry to sound like a broken record here, but Chase, if this is something that you know about the project up front, if this delay is anticipated, let's build something in terms of the project setup that allows it to be, that allows it to be divided up in a reasonable fashion, kind of to tag on to what Willie said. So if you know that, it's service panel replacements for these units, we may be able to sort of divide it up into 2 projects. If you know that the HVAC equipment is going to be delayed and you know that going in, it seems reasonable to me that we could set it up as maybe a 2-tranche project.
Okay. The real motive for this question, we've operated in programs where their back-end system will only allow us to be reimbursed for an individual address once per program term. And so if we aren't able to capture everything up front within, a narrow window, then we would ultimately not be able to be reimbursed for work performed post the initial submission. But it doesn't sound like that's the issue here. It doesn't sound like the back end system, the CAMS, wouldn't allow for multiple repairs to be submitted for us as an individual address. So didn't mean to take up so much time on that question.
Yeah, CAMS doesn't restrict anything by address. It's not going to, that's how we can do the 3 split process for the same address.
Okay.
Yeah, and also bear in mind, Chase, it's not, it's a different color of money, so it's not utility funds. So we gotta, yeah. But
well, in the remaining 10 minutes, do we want to see if we can fit in it might not be a walkthrough anymore, it might be more of a light jog, but me to kind of run through some of the processes live.
Yep.
All right. And we can continue to answer questions. I just didn't want this to get pushed by the wayside. All right. Let's see here. I'm going to share my whole screen, so things might look a little weird for a second. Don't adjust your television set. It's just how it comes out when you share your whole screen. Okie dokie. So some of this is, it's basically me just showing you what was in the slides, but I know I'm a visual learner. It helps for me to see the process itself. One of the things I wanted to point out is that on the HIE webpage, and honestly, you can probably just reach this by Googling D8CD HIE, probably even just HIE. You'll get to our page, and that's where, on the sidebar here, that's where we have the forms for WDR. So we got the program guidelines here, the cover sheet, which I've mentioned a couple times. I think it's not updated on the website yet because I had to fix it yesterday. Then we've got the application form here. And this is where it sounds like we may, confer after this and maybe make an adjustment to the language. It's a fillable PDF. So this is one of the forms you're uploading into that initialization report. This is the other one. It's the authorization and release form. And then that remittance form, actually, I'll come back to this when we get to remittances. So yeah, I'll go into a project. Again, APCA, I hope you don't mind me using you as an example because you are the first alphabetically. So this is where, after you've logged in, this is what the page looks like. And look, they've already added all their, look at that, on the spot, added your counties and cities. So this is what it'll look like when you populate everything. You're going to have all these additional cities and counties. And then again, this is where the budget tab is. I'll show you this in a slide. And probably the thing that's going to be most helpful, I actually already set up a WDR initialization report here, but let me make this a little bit bigger. Not too big, okay. Hopefully that's not too big. All right, so here's the WDR report. You click that, and then you're going to be clicking add. It's grayed out for me at the moment. And so this is what it'll look like after you've set it up. You've got another report under here. And so then you're going to be putting in the date. It's not letting me edit it. That's okay. I don't need to put in a fake report. But the property address, and you can check all that apply here under repair type, including have that other where you're going to be describing if something doesn't fit into the categories. These 6 categories were built based on the cost cap categories that we've discussed previously that are laid out in the guidelines. And again, this is that total upfront cost estimate, which we hope doesn't change, but we'll deal with it when there's change orders. And so for this is where you're going to be uploading. I should probably restart my computer at some point. That application homeowner agreement form. And that's what it looks like when you populate that. And then you just do the same for the authorization release after it's completed, and then the photos. And if you put something in by mistake, you can click remove. It's not really agreeing with me right now, but that's normally what you do. And so there are instructions right here too. If you're new to compressing files and zipping them together, it gives you some instructions on how to do that, which might be useful for the photos. So I'm gonna hit the back here and go to remittances. Actually, I'm gonna have to log into CAMS to show you this. So I'm gonna have to log into that eHeart project to show you what it's like to submit a remittance really quickly. Try, goodness. If you log in if you're a member of multiple organizations, when you log in the CAMS, you just pick the one that you're a member of. We have 2 D8CD projects for testing. So this is what it looks like again when you log in, and if you have assigned reports, they show up here for convenience. So you can see DHCD is really, really behind on our home rental project portfolio reports. We're apparently years and years behind. Click detail. And so now we're on a project that looks like the app here example, but now I can mess with this a little bit more because it's just like a test project. So enter new remittance. And so there's no money in this budget for obvious reasons. DHCD isn't paying itself to do eHarp. So, you could be like July remittance, put in a dollar figure here. And then you're clicking choose file and selecting that cover sheet, except hopefully, you figured out how to print it out and scan it with the other forms that are required. But I want to show you one of the last things I want to show you, with the exception if you have any more questions, I'm happy to stay on for a bit, is that sheet itself, because I know, it's always can be a challenge to get used to a new spreadsheet. So I just pre-populated this with the DHCD, made up a fake contract number, today's date, my name. So this is where there's that drop down. If you're just doing a single job and you've paid the full cost, say, all right, DHCD perform the work on their own building for some reason. And then you're putting in that job amount and say this is a easy job. Put in one piece of lumber. So you can see it populates at the bottom with that total. And then you can go into admin expenses. Let's just say, someone got paid, say I paid myself. My job title is my own first name, hourly rate, $20, worked 1 hour. There you go, that's 20% right there. Totals down here. If I had anything else to add, I could, description or admin expenses here, and put in additional funds. And when you go back to that first tab, it's now added that admin amount. So then this would be the total dollar amount that when you're on this page, you're putting in. Well, so you would put in the I can't demonstrate it because this is eHarp, but you would put in that home repair amount separate from the other amount. And then this is the checklist, so to speak, that, just as a quick reminder to make sure that you're putting in the certification of completion for all jobs, that general contractor lane waiver for all jobs, the photos that show the after of the jobs, invoices for all repair expenses, and then make sure you sign it.
Hey,
So
Aaron,
I knew that was a sprint through.
Well, while you're on this, Steve had an admin question. So maybe since it's related to this, Steve.
Sure.
Yeah.
So on the admin, say you had financial people that was working on that, doing POs and doing paying, and maybe an office manager. Do you list everybody on there, or it's a two-part question? That's the first part.
Yeah, Steve, we're just looking for sort of a reasonable accounting of the staff costs associated with managing the WDR projects.
Okay. And now we have up to 20% we could possibly use. Maybe one job may go over. There may be a lot of interaction with somebody having to see, is that allowable? Is it 20% per job or 20% over the whole contract, or how does that work?
Just it's 20% of your total agreement costs. So you have some flexibility in terms of how you can apply that. You may have some that are easier than others, but the idea is to help you, cover reasonably cover your costs.
Gotcha.
Yeah, and just additional clarification on that. CAMS has a cap on here, so it won't let you go over 20% of your budget. So you can't just, like, your first job, just request all your admin and not do any repairs, if that makes any sense.
Right. but you can, if you had one job and it was $1,000 and you requested 20% of that, or say $300, would that be allowable?
It would, as long as up until that point you hadn't gone over 20%. But CAMS is going to stop you if that was your first job you ever submitted. The way I understand that CAMS works with this limit is it would stop you from being able to do that, because what CAMS thinks you're trying to do is you're trying to spend past your admin limit for your whole budget.
Right. Gotcha.
So if that happens, what I would say is wait till you have enough jobs to request money for, so that you can put those jobs in and process it. Hopefully this isn't too convoluted, but get those processed so that it balances out, if that makes sense.
Yeah, that may be a long time wait for your money.
Yeah, but it's just one of those things where, in order for us to have an admin cap, CAMS requires us to put an upper limit on it for the whole budget.
Gotcha.
All right. So Robin had a question about putting multiple repairs on a job in separate requests. Yeah, I think, Robin, the idea, generally speaking, is we'd like to try to get the needed repairs, the deferral related repairs done in one fell swoop. I think we were talking with Chase a little bit about, a situation where there was a known delay in delivery of some equipment, and sort of anticipating that up front. But I think, generally speaking, that the idea is that we want to sort of know what the project budget is. So, if it's both roofing and electrical repairs that are needed to get the home off of deferrals, we'd like to kind of get those on one project and approved and billed on the same project. I hope that's helpful. If you want to jump on the line, if we're missing something there. All right. So Megan has a question regarding the admin percent for each job. Megan, we had, I think talked with one of the other providers about this, that the standard, I think, procedure for weatherization would be to sort of submit the admin percentage with each job, so that you're submitting sort of a 10%, overhead with each job that you submit, and you can do it that way. But we also wanted to say, we wanted to provide a little more flexibility with the knowing that there'd be a considerable amount of staff time. So if there was a desire to, simply bill, monthly for staff time associated with the admin cost, we would allow you to do that as well. So I think that's, so, if you want to do it in dribs and drabs, with each job, you could do it that way, but it may make sense to do it, to bill on the admin piece, on a longer time frame. But I think we've got some flexibility for you if that's helpful. Okay.
That's good. Okay.
Okay, we are 5 minutes over. Do want to be respectful of everybody's time. I think Aaron and we can stay on for a few minutes if there are other questions. But do know that folks have commitments and maybe need to get on to some other things. So I think we can wrap up this component of the call, and we'll stay on if anybody has any other more detailed questions that we want to try to tackle. So thanks, everyone. Appreciate all the great questions. I'll look forward to getting started with this process with you all.